We don't show prep. So, so he had no idea.
I just barely make it in.
I'm sure you can tell, but we don't show.
I mean, let's put the cards down on the table here.
Miami Hurricanes, yeah. You know the name already. It's Mercy, ha ha. It's a 6-ring Kane show. Can't forget the name though. Got Jazz, Blue, Vision, DJ, break the game code. Ain't no changing them, ain't no breaking them. Real put alive from the Hard Rock Stadium. Ball 14 for the orange and green. We see the 6-ring champs. It's more than a dream. This is life on the field. Beyond 100 yards, a hurricane that's never still put a damage to your squad. The 6-ring Kane show. The 6-ring Kane show. The 6 Rings Kane show. You know.
What's wrong with us? Seriously.
What's wrong with us? We're Miami Hurricanes fans.
Welcome to the 6 Rings Kane Show, a show dedicated to Miami Hurricane sports, featuring the legendary Larry Bluestein, Jazz Santana, Vish, and Danny Gillette. Let's go Canes.
Welcome back to me.
Yeah. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
What's going on, guys?
Not too much.
What's up?
I was a little thrown off by how nice it is to be back with everybody here.
I know, we missed you.
Yeah, sure you did.
No, we did. You're the heart and soul of the show.
Yeah.
Hey, be quiet. I'm trying to be nice to you for once. Now you're blowing it off. Come on now.
What's going on, everybody? How's everybody feeling today? It's
good.
It's an interesting day. We got a lot of recruiting stuff to talk about. Miami seems to be on a roll. However, Kings fans will never be satisfied, according to what I've been hearing out there with some of our fans and some of the recruitment that's going on. So we'll get into some of those players, and we'll talk about some of those guys along with our records, what we kind of feel is the outcome going to be. Look, it's camp starts in a month and a half, more or less.
Yep.
We're talking about less than 75 days before season starts as well.
Yeah, we're about 2 months. 2 months from
60 days. Jesus Christ.
From Notre Dame.
Wow.
Labor Day weekend.
Practice starts usually about 3 weeks before, right?
I don't think they've released the schedule yet, but yeah, it should be near the beginning of August.
Which, by the way, Vish, I don't know if you got my message when I sent you about the school or the ticket office not helping me out at all. So, with regards to away game tickets,
I did not. I'm still in India. My coverage has been very spotty. Some of the messages are getting through, others are not.
Do you know how they give you a deadline for tickets where you can get your well, I filled out the information and it kept saying that I couldn't put it through. Like it kept giving me an error message on the website. So I have a bone to pick with the ticket office over there. So I don't know what happened, but they were allowing me to pick tickets and then they wouldn't allow me to submit them. So I like to get them approved or whatnot. And it was the day before the deadline. So I don't know. Anyways, aside from that, bear with me on my speech today. I bit the ever-living hell out of the back of my tongue last night, and I was bleeding, like, I'm talking about for like an hour long. I did not stop. And it's, I don't know, I'm sure you guys have felt that before. It's just like, it feels like a bruise, even when you eat, when you drink, when you talk, anything.
Yeah.
It's
brutal.
Oh my God, it's brutal. So bear with me here, but let's talk about our sponsor first before we start the show here. I apologize for that. I wanted to go on a little bit of a rant. I haven't seen you guys in a little while, so we'll talk about you. Break wheel fix. Have you ever run over a pothole so hard your steering wheel shakes? Constantly losing air in your tires that you need to keep adding air? well, chances are there's an issue with your wheels, and U-Brake Wheel Fix is your solution. U-Brake Wheel Fix is Miami's premier wheel repair and restoration company. With over 20 years of experience and located in North Miami, U-Brake Wheel Fix offers quick repairs for damaged wheels, and in most cases can offer free loaner wheels to help you stay on the road while they repair your damaged wheels. If your wheels are looking weathered and it's time to freshen up your car, don't replace those wheels, refinish them. Their in-house wheel refinishing solutions such as powder coating, machining, and polishing will give your car the like new look it deserves. So make sure you contact marketing staff at 305-748-0112 or on all social medias outlets at U Brake Wheel Fix. That's the letter U, Brake Wheel Fix. Mention 5 reasons and get 5.5% off your next repair. That's U Brake Wheel Fix, powder coating, and wheel repair. 305-748-0112. All right, now that I got that out of the way, I feel like fucking attachment. Vish, DJ, big recruiting week once again. I know you guys spoke about Vance Spafford and some other guys last week. Some big flips that Miami had. Again, Miami does it again and flips another big-time prospect out of the SEC country and Tyron Evans, and gets a couple other big-time guys coming in. I'm not sure. Did you guys get to speak about J.J. Edwards as well last week?
I don't believe so,
Rutgers flip?
Did we? I don't believe so.
No? Okay, no worries. Well, that's another one, right? So let's talk about, we're talking about 4 prospects as of right now that have committed as of, I think, the last time this show was on, which is crazy. Finally, we get to speak on them before they commit, and then the next day we don't have a show. So it's kind of crazy the way things worked out this time. But, another flip. You got 2 flips, one out of Rutgers in J.J. Edwards, who's a linebacker prospect. Anytime you can take a defensive prospect away from Greg Schiano, I think you're doing a pretty good job. He's
we did talk about him last week.
Okay. I wasn't sure, but either way, I think he's a really good prospect that could develop. But I do want to talk about that later on. As far as our recruiting is concerned, the linebacker position. I know you guys probably know where I'm going with this, but Tyron Evans, Big Ten kid out of SEC country again, 4-star wide receiver, a guy that can come in and really kind of learn from some of the guys that you have there now and some of the guys that you might be bringing in next year with him as well. But a nice prospect at the wide receiver position. I know there's some other names out there that Miami is hoping for. I know there's some guys that Miami thinks we whiffed on per se, guys like Jason Lopez from Chaminade. We're still waiting on the Calvin Russell thing and the Tristan Keys thing, although it seems like Calvin Russell has not put us in his top 3 for his commitment. But that's another conversation we'll have after. But Tyron Evans, what are your thoughts, Vish, on the new wide receiver flip from Tennessee over to Miami?
Yeah, I mean he's high level recruit. Like you said, we flipped him from Tennessee. Took his timeline middle of June. Took an OV here, decommitted, and then committed last week. He's actually from North Carolina, so not necessarily SEC country, more ACC country, but was committed to an SEC school. Had a really productive last year. A lot of catches, a lot of yards, touchdowns. Again, as you said, trying to strengthen that wide receiver room, and I think, for all of the strengths we had in the wide receiver room last year, I think it was a really strong focus of this team. I think getting some bigger wide receivers has been a focus of this recruiting class, and he's another one of those, about 6'3", 6'4", and so he'll bulk up too. So I think that is continuing that trend of, I think we want to get bigger at the wide receiver position, and for as good as we were last year, we really didn't have that jump ball game ability. Now with Cam Ward, you don't necessarily need that as much because he throws people open, but going forward, that's certainly, back when we had Cager and we had some guys like that, that was certainly a useful tool to have in our tool belt. And I think we're trying to get a little bit bigger at the wide receiver position. What about you, DJ?
When I look at Evans, like you said, Vish, he has a size 6'4", 200 pounds. He had 980 yards at the high school level last season. And, I think when you look, For example, at the type of quarterback that Miami is recruiting, strong arm, can make throws in the pocket more so than on the run. You need bigger receivers, and I think Evans certainly fits the bill there. We flipped him from an SEC school, which is never a bad thing. Tennessee was a playoff team last year. How they play in the playoff is another story, but the fact of the matter is they do recruit well, and so I think Evans is certainly a very solid get. I mean, like I said before, I think the size is certainly intriguing, and Miami has stacked the quarterback room with some really, really good quarterbacks, not only right now but also for the future. So I think Evans is a guy, you want to surround your quarterbacks with talent, and Evans can do that and has that.
Yeah, at 6'3.5", 6'4", 200 pounds. He already has that bulk per se. Put another 10 or 20 pounds on him, and you could potentially have a guy that can go out there and push some guys around. And like you mentioned, Vish, getting guys that can separate, number one, but also guys that can do some damage in the red zone and go up and be aggressive, but be kind of like bullies back out there, right? And go and dominate those areas where you might you might have to face a safety or corner that's 6 feet tall. Now you got someone that can kind of go up with you and kind of fight with you. You got a guy 6'4", 210, 220. You should have the advantage every time you go out there. And whoever it is, that quarterback throws the ball up there. So I like the pickup. I think he still has some things that he can work on from a technical standpoint. But you can't teach that size. You can't teach some speed. And I think that he's got those things. Develop him a little bit. And sometimes we talk about the recruitment, right? I know there's been questions about Kevin Beard. Can he recruit the big wide receivers, the big-time wide receivers? Well, you saw he got Van Spafford to flip. Well, him and the team, of course, it's probably a team effort. But the Spafford flip from Georgia is huge. Now you flip another SEC guy, who's literally and figuratively huge, right? 6'4", 200 pounds. Both of those guys could have been playing for a potential national championship contender, another SEC championship contender in Tennessee. You got some guys with real talent there that can come in and raise the bar on the level of play at the wide receiver area. So I'm really excited about Tyron Evans. I think he's got a bright future. I think he's someone who can come in, and really be just a big help in that area. So good for us there. Good for Miami on that. I think it was a great pickup by them. Moving along. Speaking of pickups, this guy. I mean, if there's anybody that should be happy on our panel here, what a name! First of all, that's a football name, right? Israel Briggs, the tight end commits, another 4-star prospect for Miami. Another big time get for Miami for the Hurricanes. This is not this is a guy that's going to come in and be ready to go when he is, right? 6'5". He's still a little light, but I think if he puts on some weight, puts on another 30, 40 pounds, you're talking about a guy that, at 6'4", 6'5", could really make some damage, spreading him out a little bit, not only putting him inside. Of course, we're always going to want those tight ends that can block and whatnot. But DJ, we'll go around the horn starting with you on this one, on tight end Izzy Briggs and his commitment to the Miami Hurricanes. A big kid out of California, so out of the West Coast, which is a nice pickup by Miami. I know he had offers from teams like LSU and Cal over on the West Coast, and some other big time schools in the SEC also. Talk to me a little bit about Izzy Briggs.
I mean, you know how I don't like rankings, but I do think it's worth mentioning that, Briggs is Miami's highest rated tight end commit in the 24/7 sports era. So I think that speaks to his ability right there. 6'5", he can, make things happen after the catch. He's also a decent blocker. So anytime you can get a West Coast tight end who has size and, can both catch the ball and block well, that's always a plus. And when you look at, what this offense could look like moving forward, again, with the more traditional pocket passing quarterbacks, I think that this is a really nice pickup for the future for Miami.
Yeah, I'd agree.
There you go, Vish. Yeah.
I'd agree on that. This is one of the prospects I'm more excited about. I love that he's a multi-sport athlete. I think the tight end position has evolved into one where if you get the right weapon in there, it can be basically an offense unto itself. And as DJ mentioned, he's wide receiver in high school, will project as a tight end at the college level. Another tall kid, but I think he's going to be an absolute weapon in the passing game that, even in the NFL, when they line up linebackers against those really strong pass catching tight ends, it's hard for them to cover. In college, you generally, we've seen it with our own linebacking core. I know Jazz wants to talk a bit more about that in a minute, but we don't necessarily have those great cover linebackers, and it's hard. And offensive coordinators look to isolate mismatches, and we can do that with a tight end versus trying to get an extra wide receiver on the field. Just a huge advantage. I'm really excited to see how we use him as he kind of matures. He does need to put on some weight to play tight end, which I'm sure they'll work on. But I think just his natural pass catching ability, his track and field background, all of that is going to play in heavily into his ability to really contribute and be a weapon in this offense going forward. And just real quick before I throw it back to you, Jazz. Yeah, we do talk about the Hurricanes on the Hurricane Show. So it would throw a curveball to people if we start talking about NBA free agency on the Hurricanes football show.
Can I just add on to that a little bit? Can I add on to that a little bit?
Go for it, man.
If you want to hear good basketball, don't go to NBA crap. Go see buckets. Go see Vish and Mel and Matt on buckets. If you want to talk about good basketball, although I understand our teams weren't great last year, but you want to talk about good basketball, talk about ACC basketball, Miami Hurricanes basketball. The NBA sucks to me. Don't even get me started.
I agree. I totally agree.
It's the worst league. It is the worst league right now in professional sports. If you ask
I agree. I 100% agree.
But NBA still, watch Five on the Floor, part of the 5 Sports Network.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I love. Hey, Ethan, shout out Miami Heat.
This entire network is built on basketball, Jazz. Come on. As I agree with you about the NBA.
We have the best Miami Heat podcasts and shows in the country. However, the NBA sucks. Okay.
It's terrible.
God, what's up and down?
Before Jazz gets to his point, if I could just add something really quick. When you talk about the larger, height wide receivers and the tight ends, you're talking about two positional kind of groupings that you can isolate in the red zone. So I think, that's a nice theme. Again, with these pocket passing quarterbacks, I'm going to keep saying that might be pretty helpful for, those types of quarterbacks and to have those types of players.
Yeah, by the way, there's some other tight ends out there that I know that Miami's still looking at also, which is kind of crazy. But this guy reminds me a little bit of kind of in the David Njoku mold, right? Because David Njoku came in skinny, looking like a wide receiver. He left looking like a wide receiver. He was just 250 of muscle. It was unbelievable. But a guy like that, if you put him on the right weight program, and he shows up and he ends up being anything near what Njoku was here, that's a style I think that Izzy Briggs is going to bring. And so, Vish, I can understand why you're excited because that's exciting. It's completely different because at first I'm like, Lofton, but Lofton's 6'2", 250. He's a bowling ball, and he can probably throw the ball 50 yards down the field as well. So he's a different type of tight end. Just as exciting, probably going to be just as productive, if not more productive. But he's just a different kind of guy. So when you get and DJ, this is what you said, right? Being able to have so many different type of skill sets that are all legitimate that can go out and dominate any position on the field, and you put them all out there at once. Now the defense has to choose who they want to take, who they want to cover, who they want to zone in on, and you're going to leave that other position or that other player open. This offense could be good for years to come, especially with the quarterbacks like you mentioned also coming down the line in the next few years. So yeah, I'm excited about Izzy Briggs also, man. I really am. He
also he visited Miami mid-June, then visited Texas A&M and committed to Miami. So good decision making already from the young man. So
absolutely.
I am familiar with both those locations and good head on his shoulders.
Now, here's a guy that I don't want to see. He did not. So number one, he did not come out of left field. However, this was a guy that wasn't spoken about as much. I think Miami was who's kind of like undercover recruiting him because of his size, his talent is this kid. The next kid we're going to talk about is Anthony Kennedy, who is a monster of a human being. At 6'4", 335 pounds. Now they're probably going to want to bring that down a little bit. But you're talking about another 4-star prospect out of Little Rock, Arkansas. I don't know if it was in this show or if I heard it in another show, but where you want to go get your trench bullies, where you want to get your your uglies down there below that can go out and they can really dominate the trenches in the line of scrimmage. Sometimes it's in the South, right? Georgia, Alabama. Tennessee, Arkansas, Louisiana. Some of those places are where you're going to find some of the best defensive tackles, some offensive linemen, some real dogs out there. This is one of them. This is one that Miami really locked in on and said we're going to take them from that Arkansas, Missouri area, a 4-star prospect that I think low key could potentially be and that's saying a lot because there's some guys out there that Miami's looking at that we'll probably talk about in a second, but that's saying a lot from considering some of those guys. He might be the best on that line that you see in the next 4 or 5 years from this recruiting class. He's a guy that can plug the middle. He's a big kid at 6'4". And look at the recruiting class. Look at the guys that Miami's going after on the offensive line and on the defensive line. Especially in the tackle position, these guys are 300 pounds plus. On the offensive line, none of our guys, I think, are under 300 pounds right now that we've recruited. You're talking about some big guys, and this is exactly what you need to do to be able to compete at that next level to get into the playoffs and start winning some football games and get back into the national title. So I love this Anthony Kennedy kid. I think he's going to come in and he's going to make some noise real early in 2026. What are your thoughts, Vish?
I mean, same thing you said. The size, he is huge. I mean, this is a high school kid that's 330 and 6'4". I think he'll play inside here probably. D tackle, eat up space, and again, we've struggled to get that play there. Like we've ended up moving some. Last year both Mesidor and Bain played inside some. We've struggled and. They can do that, but they're much better on the edge. So we've kind of struggled to have that traditional defensive tackle that you plop in the middle that stuffs up the opponent's running game, gets a push back into the quarterback, and kind of disrupts the offensive line. It's one of the reasons our defense is kind of struggle. Obviously, there's many reasons our defense struggle, but one of them is just not controlling the center of the offensive line is a challenge because that's where they can get the running game going. If you allow the quarterback to step up in the pocket, that gives him throwing lanes. So just getting, again, as Jazz hit the nail on the head here with, really focusing intentionally, getting size in there that can potentially down the road eat up the middle of the line of scrimmage and occupy multiple blockers and free up those edge rushers and linebackers to make the tackles. And, places, as, Jazz alluded from Arkansas, we don't traditionally go in there and get a lot of kids. And you look at the 3 guys we talked about today, California, North Carolina, Arkansas. We saw that last week with the kids we got as well. We are recruiting nationally at a high level. And you're kind of, again, seeing those evolutionary steps of Mario's tenure and just continue to expand the playing field he's playing in as we pretty consistently upgrade the talent level on the roster. So it's just another kind of brick in that building he's building.
DJ, what are your thoughts on Kennedy?
When you look at Kennedy, he can shed blocks really well, and that was one of the first things I noticed when I was just looking at his highlights today. He can shed blocks really well, and he can also pursue really well. He doesn't give up on a play once he sheds his blocks. If it's a running play, he goes after the running back. If it's a passing play, he can affect the quarterback pretty quickly. So he's not a stationary, defensive lineman who can't move. He is very quick with his feet, and he can get in the backfield at a quick rate as well. So this is a guy that, can clog up lanes, yes, but also, break up plays really quickly before they even start for the in the offensive backfield.
I think what you're going to see, even from these bigger guys, Vish, DJ, our new defensive line coach, obviously, OG Miami Hurricane, Damian Lewis. I think is going to give these guys the opportunity to be, what's the word I'm looking, athletic enough where they can play inside and outside to give them that extra, just that extra step, that extra move that an offensive lineman is going to have to worry about. If you remember Damian Lewis correctly, right, going back, he wasn't a humongous guy in the middle of that defense either, but he was dominant also, right? Like the kid was a stud on the inside of our defense in the early 2000s, and that's what made him so effective is that he was able to play a little bit outside in bigger fronts and then go inside as well and do some damage on the inside. And so I think that with his mindset, the way that he likes to develop his defensive linemen, I think you're going to see a guy like Kennedy maybe drop from like 330 to maybe 310. Get some of that fat off and build some more muscle. And you're going to see a kid that's 6'4", 6'5", 310 pounds in the middle, along with a guy maybe like David Blay, Justin Scott, and some of the other, even Armando Blunt, who's probably going to play the outside, but he can even move inside. He's a 300-pounder that plays on the outside, basically. Right? He's maybe, 280, 290. I'm not sure. I got to check his weight. But now you got some big boys, man. Some big boys that can cover that inside of the line. I'm super excited about him. It's interesting to see that Kennedy's the first one to pop out. There's some other names out there that Miami is keeping a close eye on. I think the disappointing one for me is I don't know if it's disappointing. It's still early as well. Signing day is not for another 6 months, 5 months, whatever it is. But James Johnson, the kid from Northwestern, who's ranked the number one defensive lineman in the country right now in high school, ends up committing to Georgia. I know Miami was in the running for a while, but he decided to choose Georgia instead. However, look, that's a guy 6'3", 6'4", maybe 280. It's a little bit smaller on the defensive line side. Another kid, Jason Lopez, and I know Miami was very excited to have on campus and recruit. Two-way player, just like a guy like Calvin Russell. Two-way players at wide receiver. Jason Lopez kind of surprisingly commits to FSU. So that was a guy that a lot of people were kind of hoping would come to Miami, but I think it was just a battle between him and Vance Spafford, right? Both played a similar position. Vance Spafford a little higher ranked. And I really don't care about the two-sport. I mean, I like the two-sport thing. I think it shows athleticism. I think it shows that. But you give me a guy that's polished up, like a guy like Vance Spafford, over a kid that maybe needs a little bit of polishing, like Jason Lopez, very athletic, very good with the football in his hands, but it's kind of hard to say no to a kid like Spafford coming in and flipping here from Georgia. So, and then another kid I know that a lot of people are wondering about is some of the other running backs like a Derek Cooper, who has now moved his recruitment back from July 12th, but we don't know the exact date, so that kind of worries a lot of fans out there. Wants to visit places like Texas before he comes in. Calvin Russell, apparently, according to some, 247 now, doesn't have Miami in his top three to make a decision soon. That could be a smokescreen. It could be a lot of different things. You know how these kids are. Are any of these, and I'll start off with you, DJ, are any of these kids that have committed already to other schools that maybe Miami was high on that they could have potentially whiffed on? Are any of these kind of is it a surprise, right? Like, are you surprised by any of these kids who have made these decisions? Do you think Miami really dropped the ball on any of them? Is there something you wanted to see, out of maybe some of these players? I know Tristan Keys is a kid that Miami is looking at really hard, and apparently, according to a lot of people, he's high on their list, and he's high. Miami Hurricanes are high on his list as well. So I know that they both signed deals with Adidas and whatnot. Him and Calvin Russell as of now. So things are interesting out there in the recruiting world.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned a guy that I was actually going to ask about to you guys, Tristan Keys. I mean, he committed to LSU in March, but, there's been a bunch of teams after him. So to answer your first question, I'm not really too disappointed. It's hard for me to get disappointed about a lack of a commitment or a decommit or whatever, only because things move so fluidly in recruiting. Tristan Keys, if they can pick him up, I mean, he is an absolute game-changing wide receiver. So I'm honestly more focused on, the guys that, they can kind of flip right now. And, there is still in the football world a long time between now and early signing day. So, and there's only so many spots to go around. So you would have to think that Miami maybe prioritize some guys over others. And of course, they missed some, but at the same time, they've shown that, a proven track record of getting high quality recruits. So I'm not overly disappointed or worried. Johnson was a guy that I would have liked to have, but at the same time, I feel confident in the direction of where the recruiting's going. You're muted, Jess.
I'll jump in here.
I was going to shoot you this now.
Yeah, go ahead.
The reason why I'm okay with the James Johnson thing is because I think Bryce Perry Wright is that dude. I think Miami's going after him really hard. He's a 5-star defensive lineman. I think that's the guy that Miami wants. But Vish, your thoughts on those guys or anybody else that's on your mind that Miami's going after?
Yeah, no, I've got no concerns. I think overall we're stacking positions. We're building depth where you need to. You're not going to get everyone. And someone like, Lopez, I don't think was a take if you're getting Spafford. So at that point, I kind of move on. You got, in my opinion, a better player at a similar position. And as we've seen you're not playing multiple slot guys. And we've actually had a glut of people trying to play the slot here where X was lighting up everyone and they just weren't going to get on the field. So if you evaluate, you're not going to take multiples in this class. You're just setting yourself up for portal entries. And again, this is part of Mario's kind of evolving to the modern way that this landscape works. Like if you want to get the top level guys, which we did in the slot, in my opinion, the best kind of slot guy in the country, certainly one of the most explosive. You can't then also be like, and we're getting another guy. Like you're gonna have to commit to them and say, hey, we're committing to you as the guy, or you're just not going to land those kids. So to me, we've kind of prioritized. I think we're hitting the guys we want to hit for the most part. Obviously, there's going to be some misses, but yeah, I'm very happy with the way this class is shaping up right now. And again, I'm looking on year improvement, and we at least appear to be improving our recruiting annually, which is saying something given how good Mario is at this. And I keep going back to this. He's elite. And he doesn't get nearly enough credit for his roster construction and how he builds depth into multiple positions. And part of that then means you're going to miss on guys because, you kind of have to back off a little bit when you're already loading up at that position, and or in order to secure players, kind of, deprioritize others. So, I try not to look at the individual kid and be like, oh man, because the guys you mentioned, those are big time recruit, right? Obviously, any school in the micro sense, we'd love to have them, but I just look at our overall recruiting class and kind of like, hopefully I'm not eating these words in a couple of years, but I don't feel like we need them. So, and as Melissa said too, I don't know that Mario's going to fly at all.
Bit of a hard ass about that stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, and Charlie Ward, these kids are not. So he's not going to get away with kids aren't going to win the Heisman and then get to play basketball. That's not happening.
Yeah, we saw what happened to David Thompson. All right, so that's the kind of guy you get a faster struggle with. Yeah, I hate to do the comparison between him and Restrepo. I actually think Spafford might be just as good on the outside that he is on the inside because of how fast he is. He can take the top off any defense. And I know he's on the shorter side. He's like 5'10", 5'11". But there's a lot of guys on the outside that are 5'10", 5'11". Look at a guy like Jameson. What's his name? Jameson Williams. I know he's an NFL guy, but I think I don't compare him to Restrepo. I compare him. Yeah, he's going to play a lot of slot, but I think he's a little bit different. than Restrepo. I think Jason Lopez might have been maybe a little bit closer to a Restrepo type of guy. Tony Robinson that we have now, or Johnson, excuse me, Tony Johnson. Now that's the kind of guy that is maybe a little more comparable to Restrepo. But I love Spafford. I think he's going to come in and he's going to do some.
Well, I don't think anyone's necessarily comparable to Restrepo, which I think what you're getting at there, Jeff.
Well, right.
I mean, he had just like on paper, he's not. I mean, that 4.7 is his speed. How he manages to get open is almost like a mystery box. Just like the man just gets open. I mean, fourth down, everyone knows we're throwing him the ball. They roll safety over the top, underneath. He finds the gap, and the ball lands, and he catches it. And it's just, I mean, he was a. You know, we think of freaks, we think of like physical, like wow, they're just faster than everyone else. Yeah. He was a freak at getting open, and that's why operating the slot, like with the whole field to kind of operate into, he was essentially impossible to cover. And
I mean, it's funny. I mean, even the NFL, and it's not with just Cam Ward, but all the quarterbacks over there in Tennessee are saying he just finds a way to get open. We give him the ball, he catches the football, and he finds a way to get yards and everything. It's just
yeah. So I don't think he's replaceable. Just like Cam Ward's not replaceable. Like it's just, but you know, people play the same position, but they're not going to play it like he did. There's no one that. And this by the way, we love obviously Cam Ward, number 1 pick in the draft, probably the best quarterback we've ever had, at least on a one season come through here. You know, X was doing that with mediocre quarterbacks too before Cam got here. So he was still getting open on every play and catching a crap load of passes. So he did it with lesser.
I just think he's a little bit of a different player. I think outside he's going to be successful. Also, not saying that X couldn't be successful outside, but I think he plays a little more outside than X would. This is another hard comparison for me because Santana Moss is one of the greats here also. So I don't want to
speaking my era now. So.
Yeah, right, exactly. So that's our time. That's when you were there at school. That's when I was watching. Then that's a good time too. So, well, some bad and then good. So we'll see what happens with him. Now, the biggest concern to me out of all those guys is Derek Cooper because I really want Derek Cooper. I think the reason Jay Lamar didn't come here, he committed to Georgia, is because Derek Cooper, and now Derek Cooper is pushing his commitment back. So I have questions about that. Derek Cooper, a lot of people consider him the best running back in this class. I think you look at the guy that we have now, Javian Mallory, some of the guys that we have locked in already. We've got a really good stable of running backs. Derek Cooper just puts the icing on the cake. That kid is explosive. He's amazing. He's unbelievable. I think we need Mario needs to do everything he can to keep that kid here in Miami. Aside from that, this is the question mark I had for you guys, and we were talking about linebackers. We spoke a little bit about J.J. Edwards yesterday, but we're talking about how we don't know. And I want to preface it by saying we don't know because a lot of these guys are either new, transferred, like Kellen Wiley. We don't know what we have with Bonner, with Toure yet because they're transfers. We kind of have an idea. All right, it's an upgrade. Chase Smith is healthy finally after 17 seasons. Stuff like that. Bobby Pruitt's gained some weight maybe. Popo is healthy as well. So there's a lot of question marks on that line, on that linebacker position. However, at the same time, like when's the last time we recruited that big time, like monster 5-star linebacker that came in and absolutely dominated as a linebacker? I know we had some pretty good ones in Shaq Quarterman and those kind of guys when they were here, but I'm talking about like a big time. Like for instance, Alabama just got a commitment from Xavier Griffin, right? 5-star linebacker. Big time kids, 6'2", 230, something along those lines. A big time linebacker. Right now, that's where we're lacking. We're lacking in the linebacker position. We haven't seen that big time All American type linebacker come through Miami in quite some time. I think the Miami defense needs to have linebackers step up this season. And we'll start with you, Vish, on this. Are you surprised that Miami hasn't gotten that big time linebacker commit just yet, or it's been a while since they've gotten them? Or are you kind of saying, well, I expect some of these guys that we have on the roster to step up and be that big time linebacker?
Yeah, no, I expect guys to step up. I mean, Torre is you know, has been a tackling machine in the Big Ten, so I think he was a huge addition. But I mean, if you go back, it's easy now to say like, hey, we didn't really, you know, land the big time guy. I mean, Wes was supposed to be like he was my favorite kid in that class, and was supposed to be, you know, every school wanted him, and I feel like, you know, I think we've been fairly deficient in the defensive coaching. I mean, Mario agrees, he fired basically the entire staff but Jason Taylor.
You think it's more of a lack of development?
I think so, because some of these kids, if you go back to when we landed them, and I agree in this class, we have not gotten that, like, what I consider that bellwether linebacker commit in the 2026 class where you're like, all right, that is the anchor for the class and the foundation you're going to build on top of. But I do think Wes was that kid in that class, and you know, he's flashed it at times, but I'm hoping like he's someone that can take a step up with better defensive coaching, just to be blunt about it. Putting kids in a position to succeed, because I don't think we did a good job of that at all. And it's kind of weird because I felt like we got, I mean, the numbers back us up as well, but it felt like we got worse defensively last year and did a lot of things I didn't see us do 2 years ago. Like, I don't recall defensive linemen out in coverage trying to cover receivers 2 years ago like we saw last year. I mean, we all, you know, kind of joke about, wow, Kiko got a lot worse. But why is that? It's not like he stopped working. I feel like, I don't know what, I feel like we regressed pretty heavily as a unit. And the linebackers are, as you said, are a big reason for them. So we'd be stupid not to say we're not concerned at all. But I do think if we kind of go back to put our, you know, take the little Men in Black memory eraser thing and just go back to a time when we were recruiting a lot of these players on the roster. You mentioned Popo, you mentioned Wes. You know, those are like, hey, man, we are in good shape down the road. Well, now it's down the road. So let's see what these kids have got. But I am happy that Mario didn't rest on that, though, because, again, he's gone in the portal and gotten a little bit more proven talent as well to supplement.
This is a good question for you, Vish, because you kind of have that memory that you can remember back a while. Who, if you could go back, who would you say is that last linebacker that you said, like, you know, who panned out, I guess, let's say. Who's that last linebacker that you said, Jesus, this guy has been the best linebacker we've ever seen in Miami, the last great linebacker? Do you go back and say, you know, who's the guy that you can think of right off the bat that you're like, wow, this guy was unbelievable here? Like,
I mean, it was when we paired Quarterman and Pinckney. I think before that, though, and that was relative. I mean, actually, that was still like 7-8 years ago. But then after that's another big drop off, probably to the era where Randy Shannon was the defensive coordinator. It was probably the last time we really had that level of. I mean, there's a gap again. I think a lot of it is coaching. There's a little bit of a gap there in terms of, you know, we've had bad defensive coaches, and that's why it went from. And we can talk about both of these guys as head coaches and maybe question mark. But both Manny Diaz and Randy Shannon as defensive coordinators were good here, at least. And it's not surprising that that's the errors you can look at and point at linebackers and like, man, we had good linebacker play.
yeah, I mean, Jack Pinckney and what's this kid's name? The other kid, Jesus, I can't remember the other
McLeod.
McLeod. That was a hell of a linebacker core back then. I mean,
yeah, and then it's kind of a gap there when it was the Golden D'Onofrio defense, and then, you know, Randy Shannon. There's a lot. I mean, Pim's mentioned a few of them.
Sean Spence, so those guys.
Yeah, but there was like just a rolling. There was a rolling. You know,
well,
you can go. No, but I mean, you can go through his entire tenure and be like, well, there's always one or two, Vilma, TJ Williams.
Yeah.
So there was always guys there, but so I think it just kind of lends credence to the.
That's what I'm saying. Like, boom, TJ Williams, boom, John Beeson, boom, even Rocky McIntosh to a certain level. I know that.
Yeah,
he wasn't great, but he was
for a long time.
He was stud, right? Tavares Gooden was even a stud, I think. You know.
Yeah, and that's the coaches putting them in a position to succeed, and again with Randy Shannon ideas, you did have, I'll about deal with CCH in a second, but yeah, so those are you know, I think with better coaching, you're going to see some of the same players all of a sudden. Where was this last year? And so I
This
am
guy's, he's a linebacker guru, so
cautiously optimistic. I'll say cautiously optimistic. And also,
you're not from the linebacker position.
CCH Kane's on deck is in 14 minutes. So stay tuned.
Man, what's wrong with you? Get it together, dude. Jesus. DJ, your thoughts on the linebacker position recently with recruiting, and do you think there's anybody on this roster right now that could be that guy that's going to stand out to you, like a Sean Spence, like a Shaq Quarterman, I threw Shaq Quarterman in there because I think that guy was, he was a really good linebacker here, man. But like a John Beeson style, something like that. Some guy that's going to pop out to you and say, Jesus, this is the man here, man.
Well, I think when you look at familiarity and the fact that Heatherman, recruited Torre, I think he could be that type of linebacker. Now, that's provided he stays healthy. Provided he can kind of, get back to that level that he was at Rutgers. I do think it's interesting that you guys bring up the linebacker play, because even when we started the show 5 years ago, the linebacker position was a little bit deficient. So it seems like it's always been an issue, in recent history. But, I feel confident that Heatherman will get the most out of the linebackers that we have on the roster, as well as the new guys coming in. And I feel like, one of the things that Minnesota really did well was pride themselves both in linebacker and secondary play. And those were two really, really deficient areas last season that, I'm not going to guarantee improvement, but I'll say I expect some level of improvement just based off of, Heatherman's defensive style and teachings.
I'm muted, of course. I'm excited about it, man. I think that our linebacker core is talented. I think we've got an opportunity to show some stuff. There's a lot of rotation. Look, typically you're probably going to see no more than two linebackers on the field at once. You'll see a lot of five cornerback or defensive back sets. But when you get, who are those guys? Is it going to be Toure and West? Is it going to be Toure and Popo? Is it going to be Bonner? And I think there's a lot of opportunities there to mix and match. But you're also going to see maybe some of those guys play that striker star position, like a Pruitt, even like a guy like West, right? He's still quick enough that he can make those plays. You might see an extra guy in linebacker that's an edge guy, like a Chase Smith, right? Big kid, 6'4", 230, 240, that can rush on the outside. Malik Bryant is still kind of like your linebacker / edge guy as well, who's about 230, 240. So I think you see a lot of mix and match with this defense, and I think a lot of good sets are going to be. I think they're going to find a way to be tricky, to be able to fool the offenses a little bit with some different formations and whatnot. So I'm excited to see what they do. Before we end here, I know Vish, you wanted to kind of talk, lead the way on this one, man. We'll have some more, by the way, some more recruiting soon. But I think right now is a perfect time to keep talking about recruiting, because we'll see a lot of commits coming in and out, and a lot of showcases and whatnot. So, but before we end the show, I think Vish, you want to kind of
I just wanted to get everyone's take on this. So CBS kind of did their, this is, as we mentioned, we are 2 months out from Notre Dame here, and so the major sites have started to roll out their content, their preseason content. So CBS kind of did best and worst case for every team in the ACC. Wanted to get everyone's take on their comments. So they did have us as the second, favorite behind Clemson, just for context. But they put our best case at 11-1, and our worst case at 8-4. So I thought it would be interesting to see what everyone's take was on. I guess I'll start with you on that Jazz. You can go ahead and.
If we go 8-4, everybody better hide, run, duck, recover, because it's going to be a shit show in Miami, man. That will not be. That will be not a fun time. That will not be fun time.
Well, so this is best and worst case. So best case was 11-1, worst case was 8-4. So if everything goes wrong, they're saying our floor essentially is 8-4.
Yeah, so I wanted to start off with the worst, kind of work my way up to the good stuff. Look, 11-1 sounds. I feel like that's right around where Miami should be, talent wise, depth wise, just overall team wise. I think that them saying we're right behind Clemson, I'm okay with that, and I'll tell you why. And this is not a very popular thing to say around here because people don't like them very much. But I think
Right.
Clemson has the best defense in college football this year.
I agree with that.
They're
I agree with that. Yeah.
absolutely loaded on defense. And so that's what I think gives them the edge over Miami. I think roster-wise, I think Miami might have a little bit of an edge. But
Right.
defensive side of football, I don't think there's anybody better in the country than Clemson right now.
I agree.
So you got to give it to them. I understand the 11-1 right behind them. I could you beat them? Absolutely. I still think I still think you can beat them. At the end of the day, this is all on paper. You got to show it on the field.
Right.
You know, and to me, if you line them up next to each other, player by player, I think Miami has a little more depth on the offensive side. Comes a little more depth on the defensive side. And I think it's going to be it would be a fun matchup. It would be kind of like a couple years ago with the K Club thing. It'd be kind of close like that, except both teams would be better. Both teams would be good, right? We know that both of those teams were great. We just happened to come out and do a little bit more than them. They were pretty bad that year. Actually, they ended up being like 9-3, and we ended up being like 7-6. So go figure. But I think 11-1 is realistic. I think playoffs is realistic for this football program. I think 8-4 will be a complete disaster. I think anything less than like 10-2 would be a disappointment or a disaster per se. I think if you're going 11-1, 10-2, you're making it. You still have an opportunity to make the playoffs. You know, They haven't moved the team. They haven't moved it to a 16-team playoff yet, right? Vish, no, right? I know there was in talks to do that, but I don't think it's happened yet. So either way, I think you're one of the top 12 teams in the country if you play the football you're supposed to play right now. So 11-1 is reasonable. I think that this team could be a very, very, very good team. Overall, I think this is a better team than last year's team overall. I think from a depth perspective, I think from a players perspective, you do lose a couple of guys, but I think that the way that we set this team up, I think that Carson Beck fits Shannon Dawson's offense to a T. I think he's a great fit for that offense. I think Cam Ward is a great fit for any offense because he was unbelievable. I think he can do anything with anything. But if you looked at it before, right? I know hindsight's 20/20. It's hard to kind of say it now, but if you looked at it before, you said Carson Beck might be a better fit the way that he plays for a Shannon Dawson offense. I think now we all know what it's really like. It doesn't really matter. But I think Carson Beck is going to do some big things with this offense. I think that the offense is going to be fun to watch. That offensive line is going to be scary. God willing, everybody stays healthy, and we continue to progress. And then the defense, the only place to go is up. So if you have a half-decent defense, I think Miami can make some noise. 11-1, I think is good.
What about you, DJ? What are your thoughts on kind of that ceiling and floor for the team?
I think 10-2, would be very realistic. Because there's always been one game throughout Mario Cristobal's tenure that we've kind of fumbled that we should have won. So I'm kind of factoring into that as well. But I think 8-4, like Jazz said, there's no room for 8-4 anymore. We're in year 3 of the Mario Cristobal era with some very good recruiting classes, talent on both sides of football. So 8-4 would be an absolute disaster in my opinion. I think 10-2, even 11-1, if they can fire on all cylinders, is very realistic, and we'll have to see how it all plays out. But I think those are respectable floor and ceiling.
Yeah, I think they're off a little bit. I think our ceiling's higher. Like I don't see how our ceiling isn't 12-0. We're talking best case scenario. If Carson Beck comes in healthy, who on and I know acknowledging what DJ said, we saw Georgia Tech and Syracuse last year, which are
I think we're jaded, Vish. We've been through this.
Yeah, but this is specifically categorizing as best case. I don't see how the best case is not. There's not a game you look at and you're not like.
You're right.
And then honestly, if Carson Beck is not healthy,
yeah,
I've seen enough of Emory Williams. 8 wins would be a stretch. Like I think they're both off. I could see like a complete disaster scenario. I don't think this will happen. This is not a prediction.
I really don't.
This is not a prediction, but let's say, Carson Beck is not healthy and or gets banged up against Notre Dame. you could easily lose that game. You got UF coming up a couple games after that, and then like this thing can go. So I actually think
This could be the Nickel show. All right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even then you're playing a true freshman. I could see. I think the floor is probably like 6-6 if it's a disaster, and the ceiling is probably 12-0 because I don't see a team on the schedule that. I mean, who would we not be favored against right now? Notre Dame, I guess. Although the line moved all the way, I think, to we're favored after they opened as Notre Dame is the favorite, but either way, that's more of a coin flip. But you're talking best case. That's certainly a game you can win. So
right.
I don't look at any of these games. We miss, to your point, Jazz. We miss Clemson. We don't play them in the regular season. They would be one where I think, especially if it was at Clemson, we'd be 100% an underdog. It would be probably pretty surprising if we went in there and won. If it was at home, we'd probably be favored, to be honest. But we missed them. FSU still stinks. We only have 4 road games, which for us is very strange. I can't remember last time we had 8 home games. So I think I don't see how 12-0 isn't the ceiling there.
Yeah, I get you. By the way, just kind of going back on I know we got to get going here, but just going back on the recruiting thing. I actually just saw it right now where it said, that Miami's on a roll right now at recruiting. And then you look at some of the other teams that are in the top 10 of recruiting in the country right now. And a lot of those teams, like, for instance, Ohio State, there's 30 commits already. 30 commits in this year's class. Some other teams like Notre Dame has like 22.
USC is insane.
USC has 30 commits. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
USC has 30 commits. Ohio State has like 24. I just saw it now. Miami only has 18 or 19 commits, and they're gonna go big. This class is gonna be big. You're looking at probably 28 to 30 kids in this class. So that goes to show you that. I mean, with what they've done, and they're in the top. Well, I think they're number 7 right now in the country total in recruiting. The recruiting class. You're talking about a team that only has 19 commits. That blue chip ratio is big there.
Yep.
That shows you what they're doing in recruiting is pretty impressive. Put in another 8 to 10 guys in that class at that ratio, and you're talking about one hell of a recruiting class. I mean, top 5 again. Mario does it again. So have fun with that, man. That's gonna be fun. That's gonna be fun to see it.
Well, as always, the trick here in today's day and age is retaining all these guys. So it sounds good on paper right now, and I hate to sound jaded, but it's the truth. You got to make sure you keep all these guys.
Andres says it. He's got talent-wise on paper, deja vu PTSD is a mofo.
Yeah, that's why I'm like not sure about 12-0, or I don't know.
I mean, 12-0 is definitely the ceiling for Vish.
Oh yeah.
Right. I mean, when you look at it, you say Miami should be able to beat any of these teams. So.
And to answer Andres' other question, I'm going to go yay just because it's the only college football game on the market, and I love college football, so.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I know they're coming out with a basketball one now, Vish.
They are. I saw that. I'm excited for that one, yeah.
We'll see. Basketball video games tend to be pretty shit. So.
And NCAA basketball
it's
like one of those things where they haven't had one.
It's hard to simulate. It's hard to simulate.
The baseball one was fun though, but not.
Yeah,
the thing is, this transfer portal is so stupid, man. It's crazy. It drives everybody nuts. Anyway, we got a lot to talk about transfer portal wise.
Yeah,
about 5 minutes. So, looking forward to that one. Anyways, this was great, man. Good to be back.
Yeah, I had a good time.
Good to be back. We've got hopefully another show next week. Vish, I know
we should.
4 days to get back home. From India, basically.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm leaving. Well, no, that we get the hours back on the way back. So I'm leaving Saturday morning I have a domestic flight I'm about to get on here, but after we do Canes on Deck, and then leaving India Saturday morning, landing back Saturday night in Miami because you get the 9.5 hour time difference back. So
that's wild.
That's
man.
a lot of time, a lot of time on the plane. But
you went straight from India to Miami?
No, through London.
Oh, I was gonna say that's like a 95-hour flight.
There are some flights from New York straight to India, but not
Whoa,
to Miami.
I wouldn't want to do that.
That's rough, man. That is rough. You're a trooper, man. I hope you're having a good time with family over there.
Yep.
And
thanks for doing these shows while you've been in India. I
need a fix. It's like a drug. I need my kids.
Sure.
Yeah. He doesn't. I don't know. He just have his cafecito cubano over there, So he's. The struggle is real, man. The struggle is real. Indian food is fire. Indian food is fire.
Yeah, so
And by the way, I don't know if you get tiki masala in India. That's not real Indian food, but maybe you do. I don't know, Vish. You get tiki masala over there?
I have not had any.
Yeah. That's New York. That's New York Indian food, Andres.
I think it was invented in London. I think by
exactly
Indian transplants, but it's migrated back over here. I just haven't ordered it.
It's like a Caesar salad. That's not really Italian, okay?
Yeah, right.
Have fun, man. We'll be back on Monday. Follow us on at Six Rings Canes on Twitter or X, excuse me. Subscribe to 5 Reasons Canes podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is that you get your podcast. Make sure you tune in. We got a quick little Canes on deck coming for you now. We've got a lot of information though. A lot of good news from Miami Hurricanes baseball program.
Yeah, and our latest recruit, Jazz, you want to stick around for that. Jazz is very familiar with, so we're gonna get his take on a huge commit we landed last week. So
I'm excited about this one. So
yeah, this is a big time.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. Tune in now. We'll talk a little bit of baseball, but we'll see you guys next Monday. Adios.
Yep. See ya.
The 6 Rig Kane Show. Yeah. The 6 Rig Kane Show. Yeah. The 6 Rings Kane Show. You know.